Um, I really this show is interesting because I feel like everybody's saying a lot of things without like, I guess, for lack of a better term, like keeping it real, right? And what I feel like sets Natalie apart from a lot of the other characters is that she's 16 and she's a little bit sarcastic and like she's a teenager, so she's gonna say things and she's gonna say things as they are, which I think is pretty unique to her. And it's something that I always want to adopt in my life, maybe to not to like her extent, but like I definitely admire that about her, that she's like, hey, you know what, guys, no one's talking about it, but I hate this and it sucks. Because it is a very unfortunate situation for all parties involved, but it seems like a lot of people are kind of dancing around how rough it is. Whereas Natalie is a little bit more like, yeah, this sucks, and these are the reasons why it sucks. So,
Do you share that trait with Natalie, or any
um,
traits with Natalie? In what way are you like her?
I think she reminds me a lot of how I was in high school because, like, at the very, very beginning of the show, there's this scene where she's like, it's like 3:30 in the morning and she's like pacing the house because she has like a crap ton of like homework she still needs to get done, and essentially she just pulls an all-nighter because like she just has too much to do. And I definitely had nights like that when I was in high school. There was a lot of sleepless nights and just like really making sure that I was always working because that always was how I felt like not most worthy, but like I wanted to be the best at everything. And I see a lot of that in Natalie as well. And I also see a lot of like, for her, music is something that's very consistent in her life, which in a world where like everything else is so inconsistent to you, it's nice to have something that's like, okay, this is mine, this will always be mine, it's something that I can always rely on. And we learned that very early on as like an audience, that music is that safe space for her. And when I was in high school, that was definitely true for me. I was always swamped with like, I want to be busy all the time, I want to be the best at like literally everything ever, which is just not possible, right? So I definitely found a lot of comfort in my music, and I was like, this is something that, I might not be good at everything else as much as I would like to, be perfect at literally everything. um, Music being imperfect, like, is what makes it so comforting, and it was always a home for me. So I see a lot of that with Natalie. That was a really long answer. Sorry.
No, it really made me think. Actually, what do you mean? I never think about music as being imperfect. That's an interesting take. Can you expand on that? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, like with this show, Natalie is very much like, I love Mozart because like it's all there and it's exactly what you think it is, and nothing changes about it, right? And I think that for her character, that totally makes sense because like everything around her is constantly changing. Like she's been essentially neglected by her parents for a lot of her life, and again, she had music and she's always had that. So like, why would she want to learn about jazz, which is what Henry's all like, jazz is improv and it's so fun and it's so cool and unpredictable. And she's like, I hate that. She's like, why are you speaking to me about that? So I guess in that way, like, yeah, in with this show too, like so much of how this show is notated is almost speech like, if that makes sense, which if you're looking at it from a standpoint of like what classical music is and like how that, like, it is very unstructured in some ways, and I think that that also makes sense because we don't talk perfectly, we're not acting perfectly all the time. And I think I was talking this about Frankie, like, you're not always going to root for everybody all the time, but that's okay because that's what makes us all human beings, right? And I really like it when music reflects that. And like, yeah, even though, I have my moments where like I am practicing my music and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense and I hate this, but like at the end of the day, it's what I love, and it will make sense in time. So
It's a big
yeah.
challenge for you, and
Oh, the music. The music is literally killing me. I don't know, not that I thought it was gonna be easy, but like I didn't know too much about the show before going into it. Like I had like listened to the soundtrack before, and like fortunately the soundtrack is so detailed, and like that's the cool thing about the show is like the soundtrack is so detailed that you have so much information about your character, so there's no like guesswork, which is why I'm sure like everybody else had like long answers too, right? Because there's so much information to like unpack. But I had like listened to the score and I was like, okay, cool, this will be fun. It's like pop rock musical, and then and then we had the first rehearsal, and I think I like peed my pants a little bit. I was like, this is gonna be rough. There's like 35 plus songs, and I'm like, holy cow. And they're not easy is the thing. Like we all had a moment in one of the rehearsals where we're all like, oh, everyone's belting literally for 2.5 hours, and like that vocal stamina is gonna be really rough. And it's also, I didn't think about this either, but because the show is supposed to be only for 6 people, so like when you're not singing your own stuff, you're singing in the ensemble. So you are in like a lot of freaking songs. There's a lot to memorize in such a short amount of time. Yep. And there's like moments where like all 6 of us are singing completely different lines, and somehow it makes sense, I guess. But sometimes it really doesn't feel like it does. I've never done a show like this one before where it's so, I mean, all shows have points of like emotional vulnerability, of course. That's like theater as a whole, right? Is everyone's being emotionally vulnerable. But this one is just like there's 6 of you, it's like on a stage, have fun. And I've never done something like that before. I've done a lot of like big ensemble shows and lots of dance numbers, and those are great and fun and wonderful, but this is definitely out of my comfort zone. And I don't think I've done like a show that's like categorized as like pop rock before, which is also really interesting, because the sounds of Oceanside, because again, like I had mentioned earlier, we're all like squelting the whole time. So like finding those like points of like, okay, I need to reel it in here so I can really use my energy here. And yeah, it's just, this show's like totally out of my comfort zone. So I'm just stoked to be here.
So, speaking of fun, what is the song that you enjoyed singing the most?
I really like Make Up Your Mind, Catch Me I'm Falling. I don't sing very much in that one. I sing like a little bit here and there, but it's so pretty. It like, when does that happen? It happens at a very like pivotal point for like everyone's story. Everyone's kind of like breaking down a little bit, but it's such a beautiful song. It's like one of those songs where I'm like in the car and I'm like, I want to listen to something pretty, and I'll put on that one because it's gorgeous. And um, there's a lot to digest in it emotionally too, which again is always fun to do that. But yeah, I love that one. Also, Superboy and the Invisible Girl. So stoked to sing that one. It's so fun. That's definitely a song. That's like one of the songs that I knew before doing the show. Like I didn't like know it necessarily, but like that's the one that like people are like, oh, Next to Normal. Oh yeah, Superboy and the Invisible Girl. Like that's the song that like a lot of people associate the show with. So I'm just so excited to be singing it. It's so much fun.
And then, is there anything else that I haven't asked that you want people to know about the show, or you would like to add about the show?
I mean, I'm very humbled to be in an environment with so many wonderful actors and musicians. And I mean, I hope that everybody comes and sees like how hard like those people in that room are working, because everyone's working their bootay.